Hello everybody, this is Talon with another Nutrition Tier List, a series where I break down all the options in a given food group and rank them based on how nutritious they are and how good they are for your health. Last time was sweet, this time's more salty. Snacks, that is. We can all admit that we don't just eat at mealtime, right? Most of us have stuffed our faces with foods that are just designed to be satisfying at unplanned times throughout the day. And let's get to the point, most of those foods suck. While a surprising amount of them are kinda nutrient dense, as they do use real foods as their base, most of them do not really excel when it comes to the health criteria. They're designed for two primary objectives, to taste good and to last in your pantry. Now feels like a good time to mention that this video is only going over foods designed to be snacks. Yes, you can technically eat anything as a snack, but I think most people are on the same page when they hear the word. And those snacks usually have a lot of problems. They're often refined, ridding of nutritional value. They're often fried in not the best oils. They're often ridiculously sodium dense, have wickedly high glycemic indexes, and don't even get me started on all of the additives from anything that you'd buy that has a brand name. As a general rule, all of these can be better when they're homemade, and all of them will be worse when bought commercially. This applies to every item on here, I just don't feel like repeating that 25 times. No, I'd rather spend this time finding out which popular snacks are bad, which ones are not so bad, and which ones are really bad. So looking at the tiers for this video, we're going to be comparing the nutrient content and benefits against any shortcomings or health concerns that they may have. Keep in mind that these lists are ranked independent of each other, so an A-tier snack may not equate to an A-tier fruit or an A-tier vegetable. All numerical nutritional information on this list and across this series will be based on 100 grams of the individual food, for the sake of consistency and ease of comparison. And before we get started, let me know what's your favorite snack that'll actually be on this list and what tier you think it'll land in. It's time to see if your snacking has been lacking. Let's get to the list. First up, Bagel Chips are an average caloried snack with an average micronutrient profile. They're obviously made of flour and yeast and usually some kind of vegetable oil, a bit of sugar, and a few spices. Basically, they're just baked thin slices of bagel. Bagel chips are fairly fibrous while being among the best sources on this list of selenium, vitamin B3, vitamin B1, folate, and iron. Also, as a result of usually being baked rather than fried, they're lower in pro-inflammatory fats than most. On the more negative side though, they're often refined, often have excess sugar added, and can be alarmingly sodium dense. Overall though, they're not the worst, but they should obviously not be a daily food. I'm going to start this list with bagel chips in the C tier. Banana chips are a higher caloried snack with a moderate micronutrient profile. They're made of usually unripe bananas, frying oil, typically sunflower or coconut, sugar, and spices. Commercially, banana chips are pretty fatty, but most of that comes from the oil. They're pretty fibrous on average, both soluble and insoluble fiber, and they're among the better sources of manganese. But yeah, store-bought banana chips are surprisingly bad. Deep-fried in pro-inflammatory oil with a high glycemic index, boosted even further by usually being coated in some kind of sugar. Baked banana chips can be much better, but you have to either make them yourself or actively search for those. But again, not the worst chips on the market. I'm putting banana chips in the C tier. Beef jerky is an average caloried snack with a meaty micronutrient profile. It's made of cured beef marinated in usually soy sauce, Worcestershire sauce, vinegar, sugar, and a variety of spices. You could make the claim that beef jerky is a real source of protein, the most important nutrient to get right. It's the best source on this list of zinc, which is crucial for immune function and wound healing, and phosphorus, an essential component of bones and cell membranes. And it's among the best sources of vitamin B12, folate, and iron. It's got all of the upsides of being a meat as well as all of the downsides of being a processed meat. It's usually cured or smoked, which technically classifies it as carcinogenic. It also usually contains an alarming sodium content, added sugars, and preservatives like nitrates. I can't exactly call beef jerky a health food, but it can be a nutritious occasional treat, one that I'm going to put in the B tier. Beef sticks are a high-caloried snack with a middling micronutrient profile. They're made of beef, spices, extracts, and acids with a collagen casing. They have among the highest protein contents, and they're actually the highest in fat on this list, mainly saturated and monounsaturated fats. Beef sticks are the best source on this list of vitamin B12, which is needed for red blood cell and DNA creation. And they're among the best sources of vitamin B2, while being a relevant source of zinc and iron. Some positive qualities to be sure, but you knew that couldn't be the whole story. Beef sticks are another cured meat, a potential carcinogenic risk, and of course, commercially they have to be riddled with artificial ingredients and preservatives. A disgrace among meats, but an average citizen among snacks, beef sticks are going in the C tier. Corn chips are a high-calorie snack with a mild micronutrient profile. They're made of, obviously, corn and some kind of oil, usually corn or canola. Due to these oils, corn chips end up being a fatty food, which is also where it gets its relevant vitamin E content from. But beyond that, corn chips are pretty lacking. They have a high glycemic index and a crazy sodium content, and they sometimes have acrylamide, a potential carcinogen, among the often other additives. Far from even being the best kind of chips, I'm going to put corn chips in the D tier. Saltine crackers are an average calorie snack with a surprisingly decent micronutrient profile. They're made of usually unbleached enriched flour, one of the many kinds of vegetable oil, and often baking soda and yeast. They're actually often the best source of iron, which is needed to transport oxygen throughout the body, and vitamin B1, which functions in energy metabolism. They're also among the best sources of vitamin B2, vitamin B3, and folate. A significant content of their nutrients do come from enrichment, but that's how you'll find most of them anyways. Of course, it's not all good. Crackers are often made of refined flour, so they do have a high glycemic index. You still don't want to be packing them down on a regular basis. But these are not the worst choice, and they're actually pretty great for a stomachache. I think they best belong in the C tier. Cheese crackers are a higher calorie snack with a middle-of-the-road micronutrient profile. They're made of enriched flour, cheese, usually cheddar or Swiss, or sometimes some kind of fake cheese, butter or oil, and commercially, usually a lot of junk. They're the best source on this list of folate needed for cell growth, especially red blood cells, and they're among the best on this list of vitamin B1 and iron. Cheese crackers are also typically much fattier from the cheese, yes, but also from oil. Now remember, this is still a snack made largely of refined flour, so it's still not that good. And cheese crackers are going to be joining the C tier. French fries are a lower calorie sort of snack with a lesser micronutrient profile. They're ideally just made of potato, oil, and seasonings, but commercially they contain a bunch of artificial flavorings and preservatives. Being made of potatoes, there are some nutrients there, notably vitamin B6. But fries are often fried in pro-inflammatory oils, they're likely incredibly sodium dense, and they're fairly likely to contain acrylamide. Note that they can be made pretty innocent, as the only actual requirement is potatoes. But your average French fries are going in the D tier. Fruit snacks are a somewhat lower calorie snack with a polarizing micronutrient profile. They're usually made of several types of sugar, fruit puree, starch, oils, and citric acid. Fruit snacks often have added vitamin C, an antioxidant also needed to form collagen, but mostly they're just lots of sugar, often corn syrup, though admittedly some brands do contain less than others. Many don't even contain real fruit, and even when they do, it's often fruit juice or some other diminished form. Add in the artificial colors and the other artificial ingredients, and this becomes a prime candidate for the F tier. Graham crackers are an average calorie snack with a standard micronutrient profile. They're made of graham flour, sugar, oil, and often baking soda, honey, or molasses. There's a lot of variance nutritionally with these, but usually there's some fiber and iron, though they're mainly just simple carbs, including a surprising amount of sugar. Overall, I'm going to put graham crackers in the D tier. Granola bars are an average calorie snack with a solid micronutrient profile. They're usually made of rolled oats, nuts, and seeds, and often include chocolate, honey, syrup, or dried fruit. They contain a fair amount of protein as well as fiber, both soluble and insoluble, and they're among the best sources of manganese, copper, and magnesium. Now, obviously, some do a much better job of being health-oriented than others. Most don't put forth that much of an effort, as the ones you'll find stocking the shelves are full of added sugar and plenty of other commercial junk. That being said, given many of its more required ingredients, there is a lot to like here. Enough for me to put granola bars in the B tier. Pita chips are an average calorie snack with an impressive micronutrient profile. It's made of wheat flour and yeast, but often includes oils, oat fiber, and herbs and spices like rosemary. And these are usually a pretty realized innocent food. As far as carbohydrate-based snacks go, pita chips are pretty high in protein, and pita bread is naturally very fibrous, aiding with both soluble and insoluble fiber. They're also among the best sources of selenium, vitamin B1, vitamin B3, folate, and iron. Now, commercially, these are far from perfect. They're often made of refined grains, making them less nutritious and cause higher blood sugar spikes. My advice is to simply make them yourself. Just whole grain pita bread in the oven for 10 minutes and they'll be ready and they'll be great. And because of that, I'm going to put pita chips in the A tier. Plantain chips are a higher calorie snack with a distinct micronutrient profile. They're made of unripe plantains, some kind of vegetable oil, and a variety of seasonings. Plantain chips have significantly more starch than sugar when compared to banana chips, a type of nutrient that's usually slower digested and more satiating. They're the best source on this list of vitamin K, which is needed for blood clotting, and vitamin B5, which is mainly used in energy metabolism. They're also among the better sources of vitamin C, vitamin B6, and potassium. Commercially, they may be coated in some junk, and they are noticeably less fibrous than banana chips, but overall they are the better choice. All of that to say, I'm going to put plantain chips in the B tier. Popcorn is a somewhat lower calorie snack with a popping micronutrient profile. Ideally, it's just, well, popcorn, but it's usually eaten with butter or some kind of oil. Theater popcorn is tended to use hydrogenated oils and artificial butter flavoring, while microwave popcorn usually uses palm oil, butter flavoring, and a variety of acids. Popcorn is the best source on this list of fiber, and honestly just one of the best in the world straight up. It's mainly insoluble fiber, which helps to promote proper digestion. Popcorn is also bordering on a genuine protein source, and it's among the best when it comes to phosphorus, magnesium, and zinc. It's also rich in protective polyphenol antioxidants. Now, popcorn can be overeaten, but it's probably the hardest on this list to do so. It's actually a whole grain, so it just naturally gets a leg up on the competition. This is another snack that you're again going to want to make yourself though. Simply air popped with some salt and olive or coconut oil. And when it's eaten like that, I think popcorn deserves the top tier. Pork rinds are a higher calorie snack with a meat-oriented micronutrient profile. They're made of fried pork skins and often some sugar, yeast, and a variety of seasonings and unfortunately additives. Pork rinds are the highest on this list in protein, unsurprisingly, and they're also very fatty as pork is naturally one of the highest fat meats. They're the best source on this list of selenium, which is an antioxidant that's also used to make DNA, and it's among the highest in vitamin B12. It's also one of the few snacks on this list to often not contain carbohydrates, which can be an appealing trait for a snack. But that's kinda where the good ends. This is a very processed product, cured and deep fried. It's often loaded with artificial colors and flavors, and sometimes it feels like it has more sodium than pork. These negatives shouldn't require much elaboration. A food with a nutritious base that's been put through the ringer, pork rinds are going in the C tier. Potato chips are a high-calorie snack with a shockingly decent micronutrient profile. Ideally, it's just potatoes, oil, and salt, but it rarely ever is. In practice, it's a very fatty food, obviously with much of it being polyunsaturated fat from the vegetable oils. And being mainly potato, it's actually got some fiber. Potato chips are actually the best source on this list of vitamin B6, which is needed for brain and immune function, and potassium, which is used for cellular fluid balance. It's also a decent source of vitamin C. Despite all this, they are still the stereotypical poster child of unhealthy snack foods, being almost entirely comprised of simple carbs and not the best fats. By my metric, they're actually not the worst thing in the world, but potato chips are still going in the D tier. Pretzels are a lower calorie snack with a solid micronutrient profile. They're usually made of unbleached all-purpose flour, yeast, and maybe some combination of malt syrup, butter, oil, baking soda, and unfortunately some preservatives. They can actually be quite fibrous, which can help with gut health and digestion, and they're among the best sources of manganese and vitamin B3. They're also often enriched with other nutrients. Unfortunately, pretzels are mainly simple carbs with a higher GI than I'd like, but they're far from the worst salty snack option. I think on a good day, pretzels can go in the B tier. Raisins are a lower calorie snack with a fine micronutrient profile. They're usually just dried grapes, but sometimes there's some oil. They're fairly fibrous, obviously being a fruit, and they're among the better sources of potassium. They're also a great source of polyphenol antioxidants, again fruit, specifically resveratrol, an anti-inflammatory and heart preserver. It should be mentioned that raisins are very high in sugar, like many fruits, but they really can be as simple as just dried grapes. And grapes are great, so portion control becomes the main concern. One of the less damaging popular snacks to be sure, raisins are going in the A tier. Rice cakes are a somewhat lower calorie snack with a superior micronutrient profile, at least when they're made with brown rice. They're made of puffed rice and sometimes coconut milk, brown sugar, and cornstarch. But it's mainly just rice, which can be a whole grain and real food with real nutrients. It's the best source on this list of manganese, which is used in metabolism, immune function, and bone formation, and vitamin B3, which primarily functions in energy production, while being among the better sources of phosphorus, copper, and magnesium. potassium. Unfortunately, many rice cakes are not comprised of brown rice, rather white rice, and y'all already know how I feel about that. But in case you don't, it's generally less nutritious and tends to contribute to higher blood sugar spikes. Puffed rice is also shown to have a lower antioxidant content. I will say with just a bit of hesitation that this is still one of the better choices, so I'm going to put rice cakes in the B tier. Shrimp crackers are an average caloried snack with a sizable micronutrient profile. They can be either fried or baked, and they're made of ground shrimp, usually cassava starch, and often wheat or rice flour and a type of vegetable oil. They can often be a fairly fibrous type of cracker, and they're among the better sources of manganese and selenium. Unfortunately, they're often surprisingly sugary, resulting in them mainly being simple carbs, and most on the market seem to be deep fried. While at first shrimp may sound promising, I'm putting shrimp crackers in the D tier. Sweet potato fries are a low-calorie snack with a great micronutrient profile per calorie. At its most basic, they're just sweet potatoes, oil, and spices, but commercially they often come in some cornstarch. They're actually pretty fibrous per calorie, more insoluble fiber to aid with digestion, and this couples well with sweet potatoes' high resistant starch content. The real main seller here is their provitamin A carotenoid content, the highest on this list. These are potent antioxidants known for preserving macular and immune health. A comparative positive more pertaining to the fries, though, is that they're more commonly baked due to naturally having more water and sugar. Commercial variants do contain a bit too much oil and simple carbs for me to truly call them innocent, but at their best, sweet potato fries can be a genuinely healthy snack that I'm going to put in the A tier. Taro chips are a somewhat higher caloried snack with a more distinct micronutrient profile. It's made of taro root, some kind of vegetable oil, and often some seasonings and sugar. These are among the highest in fiber and the best source on this list of vitamin E, an antioxidant known for boosting skin health. They're also a better source of vitamin B6 and potassium. Traditionally, these are a pretty good and even underrated snack choice, but unfortunately in practice they're sold a lot worse due to all the additives. Still, they're a better choice that should be on more people's radars. I'm going to put Taro Chips in the B tier. Tortilla chips are an average caloried snack with a subpar micronutrient profile. They're usually made of corn, though sometimes flour tortillas, vegetable oil, spices, and unfortunately lots of other junk. There are some nutrients buried in there somewhere, like some protein, fiber, and magnesium, but tortilla chips' biggest sin nutritionally is arguably just being the most bland. They're just a pile of simple carbohydrates, typically fried, so there has been acrylamide as well. With no real redemptive qualities outside of an addicting crunch, I'm going to put tortilla chips in the D tier. Trail mix is an average caloried snack with a terrific micronutrient profile. Its ingredients can vary a lot, but it commonly includes nuts like almonds, cashews, and peanuts, seeds like pumpkin and sunflower, dried fruits like raisins, cranberries, apricot, mango, papaya, and banana, and candies like chocolate. Trail mix could be considered a legitimate source of protein as well as fiber, making it a more satiating snack by design. It's also rich in the healthier fats from these staple nuts. Trail mix is usually the best source on this list of copper, which is used to form red blood cells, and magnesium, which is crucial for proper muscle and nerve function. It also tends to be among the best sources of vitamin E, phosphorus, and zinc. You can also count on a variety of protective antioxidants depending on the legumes and fruits included. That being said, those dried fruits alongside the candy can result in a higher sugar content than you'd want for a standard meal, but fortunately, this is a snack. The bottom line when it comes to trail mix is to just use common sense. Read the ingredients or put it together yourself. I couldn't possibly pin down a ranking given the variety, so I'll judge it at its best and say that trail mix belongs in the top tier. And last on this list, Veggie Chips are an average caloried snack with a middling micronutrient profile. They come baked or fried and include a multitude of vegetables including carrots, sweet potatoes, parsnips, kale, spinach, squash, taro, and even tomato. And of course they have their oils, seasonings, acids, and preservatives too. On this list, Veggie Chips are among the highest in monounsaturated fats, and they have a respectable content of fiber, potassium, and vitamin B6. But they're generally not as good as the name would suggest. That's because what they actually contain are degraded forms of vegetables, often starches, powders, and pastes. Refinement has destroyed or simplified much of its nutrition content and generally left it as just another chip. Thus, I feel it's only fair to put Veggie Chips in the D tier. Wow, most of these are not real food. It's a good thing they're not meant for mealtime. Though upon closer inspection, I question if they're even meant for consumption in the first place. When you consider that everything below the B tier on this list would likely be in the F tier on any other list, it really puts things into perspective. So be smart about your eating habits, especially between meals. Now, if you enjoyed this video, or at the very least learned a little something, I encourage you to subscribe as I have plenty more of these on the way. I also encourage you to share it with someone who you think might find it useful or interesting. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments what else you think I should rank, and remember that all I ask is that you do your own research and advocate for your body. You only get the one.